Okay, we are live. Welcome everyone. I'm Stephen Bartkus, the Executive Director of the Ridgefield Historical Society, and I'd like to welcome you to the first gathering of the Ridgefield History Club here at the Scott House at 4 Sunset Lane in Ridgefield, Connecticut. Today's date is Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023. The Ridgefield Historical Society, as you know, has a purpose to preserve, interpret, and foster public knowledge of Ridgefield's historical, cultural, and architectural heritage, all the way from the Native Americans who lived on this land 10,000 years ago up to the present day. And we welcome all of you to get involved here as a volunteer, a member, a donor. Anything you could do to help us preserve the history of Ridgefield is always appreciated. So for today, with the Ridgefield History Club, we're so fortunate to have local history luminary Jack Sanders here in attendance. Thank you, Jack, for joining us, and hopefully you'll be able to add some great perspective to the stories that we're going to hear today and guide us through Ridgefield's history. So we're envisioning this program as being an informal program that meets throughout the year, perhaps monthly here at the Historical Society. And it's a storytelling session, so this isn't a lecture or a formal presentation. It's meant for you, the community, to come here and share your stories about life in Ridgefield. We're very interested in hearing and preserving the stories of you and your families here at the Historical Society. And we're recording this because we think it's important to preserve those stories for future generations, so they will be archived on the Historical Society's Facebook page and cataloged here in the Historical Society's archive so that future generations will know about the people, the places, and the events that took place here in town. And not everyone needs to speak, so we also invite people to come here just to listen to these very fascinating stories. And we also encourage people to bring things for show and tell. So if you have a photograph related to the story that you'd like to share, perhaps of your family or of a business in town or a school photo, please bring that and share that with us. We have some photos that Ruth set up here on the table of interesting places in Ridgefield's past. Also, if you have any interesting objects or artifacts that relate to what you'd like to talk about, please bring those and share them for show and tell. So for today's gathering, this is an open session. There's no predetermined topics, so we're just going to talk about whatever is on your mind. As we go forward, I think we will set a topic for each meeting, and maybe one meeting will talk about farms in Ridgefield, and another one might talk about pharmacies and soda fountains. And we'd love to hear your memories about those. So with that, I think there are only 2 ground rules I'd like to mention. It would be great if everyone could say their first name and last name before they shared a story, because we're recording this, and that will be helpful to know the name of the person who's sharing the story. And we also ask that one person speak at a time. So it's very tempting to start a side conversation with someone seated next to you, but it makes it very hard for the audio recording to pick up what everyone is saying if more than one person's speaking at a time. So if you state your first name and last name, and if we stick to one person speaking at a time, I think everything will go smoothly. And if it gets a little too rowdy, I'll wave my hand and let you know. So with that, I think I want to first just briefly go around the room. If everyone could just introduce themselves, I think that would be a great place to start. And if you could say your first name and your last name, and also, maybe something like how long you've lived here in Ridgefield. Let's start by doing that. Jack, would you like to start us off?
I'm Jack Sanders, and I've lived here for 55 years, and most of that time I've studied and written about Ridgefield's history. It's something that interests me.
I'm Sally Sanders. I've also lived here for 55 years. I joined the Historical Society about 5 years ago, and I'm on the board now, and it's just a great place to find things out that you never knew. I really enjoy working here.
My name is Mary Morrisroe, and I've lived in Ridgefield since 1974 because that's when I married Ridgefield. My husband was Jack Morrisroe, God rest his soul, and he lived and was born in Ridgefield and lived in Ridgefield all his life.
Thank you.
Patricia Lagos. I've been here 85 years. Graduated in the class of 1954 from the old Ridgefield High School.
Thank
Guess
you.
I'm an old timer.
Thank you.
And hi, I'm Sandy Muzziello. I grew up under the name of Perry Andre. I lived here on Prospect Street, and this was my whole area to play in, and I went to school. I walked to kindergarten and nursery school when I was 4 and 5 years old. I mean, we couldn't do that now, but myself and my best friend Tammy Sullivan, we walked to school every day, and we went to the school over here on Bailey Avenue. And as growing up, we would look up at the high school, which was up at the top of the hill, and we kept on saying, I guess I'm saying too much, and we would say, this is where we're going to be going. We're going up there to the high school soon. And that's it. I'm Sandy.
Yes,
That's
thank
it.
you.
Hi, my name is Lynn Mullen. I was Lynn Casagrande, and also I was born here. And I have the same story as Sandy because we were in school together and did everything together.
That's great. Thank you.
I'm Barbara Serfilippi, was Barbara Torsellini. I've been here for 75 years. I was town clerk for 19 years. And just recently I volunteered here at the Scott House, and it's unbelievable the amount of knowledge and the amount of things that they have here that anybody can have access to, and it's so valuable, and happy to come and do it.
Thank you.
My name is Joyce Leege. My maiden name was Casavecchia. I've lived in Ridgefield my whole life. So I, like Sandy and the other girls, have been very fortunate.
Thank you.
I'm Don Maselli. I'm a resident of the Ridgefield station, which is, senior care. And I've been here once before with a friend of mine, and I'm looking forward to getting involved also.
Great. Thank you so much.
I'm Don Hale. I belong to I'm a cellmate of my buddy here at the Ridgefield Station. I keep saying I'm a cellmate or I'm an inmate. I can't get the knack of saying I'm
Resident.
what would be the proper word?
Resident.
Resident, there we go. But that's why I don't say resident, I can't remember that. I have difficulty remembering my own name.
Yeah.
I've been around 92 years, so I'm like you ladies here, I wasn't born yesterday.
Okay.
But I look forward to history. I like history. There's something new, and when you start researching anything, you find something new and exciting, no matter what it is. Once you start going in deeper and deeper, and the deeper you go, the more things you find out about other people and how they survived and how they worked and lived. It's a very interesting topic. History is my favorite subject. Well, maybe because I lived so darn long, and sometimes I wonder why. But okay, there's other cellmate here.
Actually, we are together and enjoying it really tremendously for the last few months that I've been here. However, my internship here was sort of interrupted by going to school in other places. And I started out, by the way, my name is Dick Natoli, Natoli. I had a sister who lived here with her husband at that time, and he was one of the scholar boys from the Elms. So I started coming here when she got married in 1950. But that was weekends because my father was off at weekends, and we'd come up, my father, my mother, and myself, and we spent enough time here to understand it and like it up here very much. And after that, however, I had schooling to go to. I went to North Carolina, University of Chapel Hill, and followed by medical school in Bologna, Italy. I was there for about 6 years. Found my wife there, and we got married there, and came here into America. I did my internship and all my practices down in Long Island and the North Shore of Long Island. And I turned out to be an anesthesiologist, and now I'm here as a retired individual, and we're living in the same place as the Ridgefield station, and enjoying it tremendously.
Are you Vice Scala's brother?
That's right, Vice.
Yeah. We all know it. Yeah.
Oh,
Wonderful.
yeah.
I'm John Katz. I've been a resident for 85 years. I haven't lived here all that time. I went to school away from Ridgefield and had work life away from Ridgefield for a while. But I've always been a resident of Ridgefield. I know that natives don't accept me as a native. That's their problem.
Thank you.
Andrea Golden. I've been here 29 years, which makes me a young'un comparatively, and I missed all that growing up in Ridgefield experiences, which I read about all the time on Facebook and things. And I took minutes for planning and zoning for about 5 years, many years ago, and it was just a way to really start getting immersed into the town and the properties and the history of Ridgefield.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Macklin Reed. I wasn't born here, but I went to first grade at Veterans Park, so been here a long time. And spent my whole work life here, and just really love the town.
Thank you.
My name is Betsy Reed. I'm married to Mac Reed. My maiden name was Sheehan. My parents moved from Brooklyn. In 1955, we moved to the house next to the library, which is now a parking lot. And there were 11 of us, 11 kids living in the house. My dad was a practicing pediatrician, probably the first one in town, I'm guessing. In fact, Pat, for many years with my dad. She was great, great lady. So we're all scattered. There's probably 3 of us left in town, but so that's it. I've been working here at the Historical Society for about 15 years.
Thank you. Okay.
We don't want to hold a candle.
Does someone have a story about Ridgefield's past that they'd like to share? Who would like to start off? Maybe a story about your family, or where you worked, or where you went to school, or some interesting people you remember who used to live in town. Who would like to start off by sharing something they know about living here in Ridgefield?
Well, I'll start. I think I'll add on to Sandy's theme. The best part of growing up in Ridgefield was that we went from first grade to 12th grade in one school up here on the hill. And we just moved from one end of the building first grade, all the way to the end of the building in 12th grade. And it was a great experience. We had great teachers. And I don't know, we all kind of had the feeling of being a family. Of course, Ridgefield was quite small then. The population was, if we had 5,000 people back in 1950, and we had a lot. But it was a wonderful experience to be here at that time in the 50s.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Could I ask a question?
Sure.
How many students were in the school, the graduating class, say?
Our graduating class of,
60.
yes, of 1960, we had 60 graduates.
Wow, that's a good-sized group.
Right. But then, the year after,
Well, our class,
We had, in 1961, we had 65 students.
Pat,
In 1954, we had 37.
Wow.
And my daughter, who graduated in 78, I think had one of the biggest classes, close to
Yeah.
400 or
Yeah,
something.
right.
Yeah.
but our kids had 450. Yeah.
I graduated in 1969, and I think we had a couple of hundred. And I went to Veterans Park for like 1st through 5th grade, but we had a period where we'd walk down the hill and then back up the hill by where the boys club is, and we'd have our morning classes would be like, you know, English, social studies, history, and math would be at Veterans Park, and then we'd walk up the hill to have art and music in the old high school building. And while we were walking up, the other half was walking down, and they had art and music in the morning, and then they came down to Veterans Park for their, you know, core classes. It was split sessions, double sessions. I was right in the middle of a period of great growth for the school system and a lot of controversy about, you know, the money that it cost and everything.
Great. Does anyone remember any of your teachers? Do you have a favorite teacher that you remember? You could tell us their name and maybe a story about why you liked them so much?
Or didn't.
Or didn't?
Well, I would like to bring up Dirk Bolenbach, which is too bad he's not here to enjoy this. He'd be perfect for something like this. And part of my story is that I had him he used to teach U.S. history and would just bring out, you know, a lot of conversation and stuff. And I was in college, and I was on a date with a girl who was like a year ahead of me in school, and we're out, you know, and we started talking about Dirk Bolenbach, and we both had this memory of a lecture that he gave, I guess, at the end of every school year called The Attenuation of Experience. And it was about how just people's experience of life was getting more and more the same, you know, he was talking about things like there used to be like 500 kinds of apples and now there were only 20 or, you know, stuff like that. And it was just weird to be like in college and on this date with some girl from town and end up spending the whole time talking about this teacher. So that recommends it.
Yeah. Well, we had our homeroom teacher when we were seniors, and her name was Miss Wills.
Yeah.
She was unmarried. She was under 5 feet, and just terrified everyone, even these big, tall athletes, because when Miss Wills laid into you for something, she was also the Latin teacher, you really knew it. And she was like a legend at the school. Yeah.
she was.
Yeah. A lot of the teachers most of the teachers were unmarried. And so I wouldn't say she was a favorite, but as I say, she was a legend.
Memorable.
Unforgettable. Absolutely.
No, she scared the bejesus out of you.
And she lived her last years over the Elms Inn,
Yes.
if I remember correctly. They had rooms to right?
Yes,
And she lived up there.
right.
She did.
And I
The
think,
restaurant.
and I think Nina's used to bring up meals to her.
Mm-hmm. They did.
Nina's Restaurant.
Nina's restaurant used to bring up meals to her. Yeah,
Yeah.
we remember her very well.
Yeah, she was a force. Yeah.
Yes.
But we had great teachers. I mean, I think in first grade I had Miss O'Hearn. You must have had her too, I think.
Yeah, it was Miss Carroll.
Yeah.
Miss Carroll was the other
I
first
had
grade
Miss
teacher.
Carroll,
Right.
yeah.
When did Nina's become the early bird?
No, Nina's didn't become.
Well, let's see.
69.
Jean sold the place to someone who had a little problem, and it went out of business up on the main road. And then they went down to Stop and Shop Plaza,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
he sold out.
Roy Cogswell.
Roy sold out and came up. Judy, who is there, the owner now, worked for him. But I'm trying to think of what year it was.
I don't
Jack just moved around for coffee.
But it was an early bird when it was in Stop and Shop.
Oh,
Yes,
yes,
it was never,
yes.
it was never the early bird up
No.
on 116.
No,
No.
it wasn't Nina's.
No, it was Nina's.
I moved here in 1994, and I did go to Nina's maybe twice. I moved in April. I think it was closed by September. It was
Yeah.
that year.
Yeah.
Nina's
Okay,
shut
yeah.
down. And Roy, of course, was
And Roy
already
then
set.
opened up down at Stop and Shop.
Yeah.
That's right.
And Nina's was the place, if you had a contractor who was working for you and you couldn't find him,
That's
you would go there early in the morning, and that's where they would be.
Absolutely.
Or late in the afternoon at the corner pub.
Exactly.
I think we have another fond memory, which is appropriate this time, was squashes.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was a great place. We had a soda fountain, and after school we'd walk down and you could get anything you want. And I remember squash going to work at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to put the newspapers out, because they had he had all the New York newspapers, but he did that every day of his life until he retired, and that was one of our favorite places. Was squashes and Bissell's too.
Bissell's had a soda fountain.
Yeah.
Had a soda fountain.
And Squash's right-hand man was my uncle, Pete Casagrande,
Oh,
and his wife, Cookie, and they would be down there also at 5 o'clock many times, putting the newspapers out in front with just a box there to throw your money in.
Yep.
And my father would go every day to get his papers from his best friend at the time, Pete.
And Lynn's father owned Casamores, that is now down on West Lane.
Right.
And Lynn is my cousin.
Was Squash's always where it is just before it closed? Where was it originally? Or was it always in that location?
Was it always in that location?
Because I know where it was.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Squash's was always there.
I think before it was called Finch's had a.
Right.
Had
Yes, you're right.
Because once again, my aunt, Cookie Casagrande, was a Finch, so
Was a
her
Finch.
family had owned it first. Squash's I can remember, had a great selection of magazines and comic books.
Oh, yeah.
I can still picture them all laid out there. And of course, we didn't always have money, so we would sit and kind of try to read them, and Squash would kind of move us along, if you're not buying, keep on moving type thing. Movie magazines, I remember loads of movies.
Yes,
Movie
the movie
magazines, yeah.
So Squash was Aldo Travanglini?
Yes.
And his brother worked at the police department?
At the police department,
He was Big Squash.
Yeah.
The police dispatcher was Little Squash.
And what's
we
the
have
story
some
behind the
nicknames
nickname?
for the people
Squash.
in town.
Yeah, where did this name
Would take
Squash
us
come
hours
from?
here.
Yeah.
How did
Big
they come up with
and
Squash?
Little Squash.
How did they come up with Squash?
I don't know, there was a story.
Yes,
and I
there
don't-
was a
I
story.
don't remember it.
That was the father's name.
Yeah.
And the
Parents
the
would
father
probably
did not
address
like being called that, but it was, some said it was because of the shape of his head. And some said it was because he liked squash. But he really disliked that everybody knew him that way. So the kids picked up the name.
I always wondered about the nickname Snaky Santini. Anybody
Peter
know?
Santini.
Yeah, why Snake?
Ridgefield was a town of
We'll put
nicknames.
Jack on there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we'll put Jack on
That's
there.
a whole book in itself.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah.
Nicknames?
Sneaky Santini.
Well, I have a story of fear. I'm a Yankee fan from the Bronx, and I forgot that my two grandsons live in Fairfield. So we went, luckily, to a Met game. And we're walking in the parking lot, and I hear some young kids behind us, you know, sassing and making fun of that because they were all bedecked with Boston Red Sox. And I was like, my God, can I get through to the end of this parking lot? But it was an eye-opener for me because I was so used to New York City that I didn't realize until that happened, hey, my grandsons are not New Yorkers. They're from, they're from Fairfield. And it's like, I have to get used to that.
Yes.
That's funny. Is Ridgefield a Yankees town or a Red Sox town?
Yankees.
More
I would say it's split.
There's a few Boston people.
And a few
Few.
Red Sox.
Yeah. Huh?
Few,
Yeah,
just a few.
I took abuse for my Red Sox hat for
Yeah.
many decades.
My husband does too.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it gives people something to say.
Well, when Fairfield played Ridgefield for a soccer game, it was a great game. But I said, now, what do I do here? I'm living in Ridgefield, but I'm cheering for Fairfield. I said, I have split personality.
You gotta go with the grandkids.
Yeah.
Great. Does anyone have any other stories they'd like to
I have a
share?
question.
Yes.
Sure.
I visited this older woman. She was 101 or 2. I think I told you, Barb, about this. And she used to tell me when she was young, she grew up here, she used to take a sleigh to church, and she had gas lights throughout town. And I said, when did that turn over? She didn't remember when that turned over to be electricity, so it could have been, you know. Does anybody have any idea? Did you guys have gas lighting and all that?
No.
No. So that must have been.
You know, there used to be a village lighting district where they would, people that lived in town paid special extra taxes to support the street lights.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, she had great stories.
Well, we did have a village district
Yeah.
at one point,
Yeah.
like you
They
said.
had sewers
They
and
paid
lights.
extra. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But they did away with that.
What constituted the village? Like the Main Street
Pardon me? Yes,
Yeah,
mainly Main Street.
and like
Yeah.
a couple
Tuna
roads through the
Street.
village?
Yeah, they paid for the extras.
High Ridge.
High Ridge.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Did away with that.
Great.
I'll ask a question.
Yes, go for it.
Favorite restaurants?
Oh.
Any that you remember that were really special that aren't here anymore?
Hayloft.
The
Hayloft in
yeah.
South Salem.
Ridgefield Inn was wonderful.
Or
Way
I-
back then.
And let's not forget the Elms.
And the Elms.
Yeah. I went to the Elms before I married Jack and lived in Ridgefield. They had a wonderful
Yeah, it was a
reception
wonderful
there.
atmosphere, but the food was
Absolutely.
really
Jojo
Just
McMahon is
two others we
bartender.
like to mention is the Elms Inn was our favorite, and also Ice House
Oh, yes.
Yeah, the ISO.
Don't forget that.
Ravioli.
Wonderful
Yeah.
Italian food.
Yes.
And then when you finish eating, you could go to the bowling alley.
Oh, I forgot about the ice
That's
house.
awesome.
The homemade ravioli were out of this world.
All different sizes. You get some
Yeah.
like this, some like this.
It took them hours. Handmade.
Never had
Sister
anything
Rometti.
better.
Yeah.
What's that?
Never had anything better than
No.
That's right.
Oh, I even forgot
Best
about
Italian
that.
food.
No.
Where
and
was
you
the
would
ice
go
house?
there with your family and you would know everybody at the
Or
restaurant.
managers.
And that was always the way back then. You
So-
knew everybody.
Does anyone remember, there used to be, because I used to pass this restaurant when my parents would take me to Great Pond for swimming at Great Pond, which is a whole great subject. But
Yeah, that's another subject.
it
as
was
well.
called the Alibi. And
Oh,
it was on Route
yes.
7,
Yes.
like somewhere near Simpog Turnpike. or,
Yeah,
like,
there's a tile place there
Yes,
now.
yes.
It
It's
used
across
to
the
like
street
across
from
the
that.
street from the
Yeah.
tile place,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
It
But it's
burned down.
totally gone, it burned,
Yeah.
yeah.
I
It was
rem-
always
I remember the name. My parents used to
rumored to
go
be
to something
suspicious,
else
that
before
fire.
the Alibi. What was it?
There was the Red Lion
Restaurant fires are,
Oh, yeah.
Always suspicious.
Right, Patty,
No.
Red Lion, how could we forget that?
Yeah.
Red Lion.
First place Jack took me
Big
to
part of
dinner
growing
up
up here.
It was a steakhouse before, though, right? Before the Red Lion? Is that right? Jeff?
yes, and before that it was a kennel
dog kennel.
for
Yeah.
dogs.
Yes. That I remember.
And then there was, and I can't think of the name, oh gee, the fish place that we loved.
King
King
Neptune.
Neptune.
Oh, yes.
That was one of the very favorite,
Fife and drum.
favorite, yeah.
Fife and drum,
Yeah.
yeah.
On King Neptune, on Friday nights, you be waiting outside. There's a
Yes.
line
Yeah.
around the building
Right.
to get in.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that time, there weren't a lot of
No.
fish houses
No.
around. And
I went
It's
to
very
school with Georgia Rico, whose
Yeah.
dad, Frederico, owned it.
Yes.
His brother,
Frank.
John, there was John,
That
was he
was
the one that
killed.
was killed in
Yes,
Vietnam?
John was
Right.
killed in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And the other brother was Fred
Right.
Jr.
And he now manages over here at,
the lantern,
no,
No, Gaddis, here,
what'd you say, Sam?
Gaddis, or right here.
No, Gallows.
Gallows.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
close.
talk about
Gallows,
kids.
I know.
Names.
Yeah.
Gallows,
Close,
yeah.
close, yeah.
Thank you very much, Julie. I feel better now.
I'm
I'd
part
had
of
a
your
knot in my
club.
stomach and then you just released it. Thank you.
I'm part of your club, don't worry.
Oh, we're all there now.
Yes.
Yeah, so we did have some nice restaurants.
We still have some nice.
Yes,
Right.
we
Yeah.
do,
But
absolutely.
growing-
Very
growing
nice.
up,
We did.
we had fine restaurants,
Yes.
but there were very few. I mean, this is when we
Yeah.
were kids.
Kids,
Very few, I would say, middle of the road restaurants.
right.
There was the fine restaurants. There was the Elms, the Inn of Ridgefield,
Stonehenge.
Pottsville,
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge. But you know, that's what I would call fine restaurants.
We didn't go out for dinner much.
No,
No.
because we didn't have McDonald's, we didn't have
Birthdays and
that.
anniversaries.
In fact, when Barbara and I grew up together, actually, because we're cousins, but we a big to do for us was when our families, our mothers and fathers, would take us to the Elms Inn for dinner, and we would have shrimp cocktail.
Yeah.
We never had shrimp cocktail. Never, never, never. And that was like we were.
We thought we were hot stuff.
We were out stuff. We were out for shrimp cocktail.
Shrimp cocktail.
For 50 cents.
Imagine.
Yeah, about 50 cents, right?
Do you
Those are
remember?
good memories.
Do you remember anyone who worked at the Elms?
My mother.
My mother also.
Oh, so
Yeah,
tell us
my
about.
mother worked there when she was 14 years old.
What was her name and what did she do there?
She was Delphine Perry Andre, and you know what? She did everything because at that time, you know, that being 14 years old and working full time, and she remembered Mom lived until she was 102, and of course her memory was going. But the one thing that she always remembered was walking up to work at the Elms Inn and working at the Elms. That was the one thing that she kept on saying over and over again. Yeah.
A question
Fond
for
memories.
Jack. Jack, who owned it before the Scala family?
The Rockwells owned it for
That's
much
who
of
your
the
mother worked for,
20th century.
Is that who Mommy worked for?
Yeah, it wasn't
Yeah.
the Scalas back then.
It wasn't.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Scala started out as a chef at the Outpost Inn,
Right.
and then he opened up a diner on Main Street.
Yeah, right on the
of
corner.
The
Yeah,
real
on the
estate
corner.
offices.
And
And
then,
that's where Lick Santini took over?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
yes.
Yeah.
Where
So is-
Newman's is now.
Yes. Was that Mario's father or Mario? Scott?
What's that?
Mario's
John-
Mario's
John-
father was
Yeah.
the first chef there.
Yes.
Yes, he
Mario's
was.
father, right.
My mother also worked with Sandy's mother at the Elms Inn. Her name was Mary Carini, and she worked as a waitress there. And her whole life, she always said, "Be nice to the waitresses and tip well."
Was she? Did she also go to work for Harold Davis in the tax office?
And she worked for Judge Donnelly. She was secretary for Judge Donnelly.
Probate? Or just
I
his
don't-
law?
Yes, he was probate judge.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't remember
Jack.
her working for Harold Davis. Could be, and I've just forgotten. But
She lived on North Salem Road?
Who?
She lived on North Salem Road, did she?
Her mother?
my mother, no, she
Yeah.
lived on
Mary
she lived on Danbury Road, right across from the ice house, right
Okay.
across the street from the ice house.
Yeah.
I grew up in Dimitri's parking lot. Everything's torn down.
That's right. That's where Patty grew up. Mhm.
Yeah.
And what about Bones's down at?
Oh, yeah.
Cozy Nook?
Yeah.
Closing, yeah.
I mean, that's where we used to sneak out and go for lunch at school.
From high school, yeah, run down there and grab a
Yeah.
sandwich.
Oh, talk about you had a cafeteria in the high school?
Yes.
Yeah.
And who cooked then, when you were there? Was it, I mean, I
Vincent-
remember at Veterans Park,
Vincent Cena.
it was
And
lovely
Mrs.
food.
Bella Hovey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she was
Yeah.
Norwegian, I
Yeah.
think. And,
Oh.
they were great. Oh, we got that was our favorite thing, was to eat in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Because that was,
It
you
was
know,
Yeah.
their meatloaf, their chicken
Yeah.
fricassee.
Oh,
spaghetti
chicken
day.
fricassee,
Yeah.
You still see it on Facebook, sharing this chicken fricassee recipe that we had at lunch.
Really?
Oh my gosh, it
It was
was great.
delicious.
All homemade.
All
They made
homemade.
it all there. There was nothing brought in,
Yeah.
and it was wonderful.
Even in the 1980s, they were still, Mrs. McGlynn was cooking at,
Yes,
Yes.
Louise.
at Veterans Park.
Yeah. Louise was at
Yes.
VP. Yeah.
And one of the cafeteria at the old high school would never meet health standards because you went downstairs,
Yes.
the boiler room was there,
Yeah.
the girls' bathroom was there, and there was the cafeteria.
What was the name of the woman who was in charge of the food program?
Oh,
Sorry.
Elvina
Elvina
DeLuca.
DeLuca.
Yes.
Elvina
Yes.
DeLuca.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I might have added, I might interrupt
No,
this
go
here
ahead.
at the time. I worked as a waiter one summer at the Elms.
Oh, you did?
Ah.
And I really didn't know much. First, my brother-in-law, Mario, said, "Get behind the bar." I went behind the bar there, and they came in and they'd ask for a martini or something like that. I never drank. I still don't drink much at all, and I didn't know how to make one. So I said, "Just a minute, I'll be right back." And I went to the kitchen. Mario, how do you make them? And this happened quite a few times that summer, as far as knowing that. So then he put me as a waiter. And I tell you the truth, thank God I'm not a surgeon, because when I brought out chicken to one of the customers there, and we had a French waiter too, and Henry, and he's telling me, you got to take all the bone out from there. I said, "You take a bone out?" "Yeah." "Are you kidding?" I said, "I'm not at the surgery yet." And what he really did was he said, "I'll do it for you." I thought he was joking around. I thought, you clean out the bones and an order of chicken, and I guess it was a half a chicken at the time, and it was easier for them to do it, but he did it for me. God bless him, because I turned as red as maybe your sweater. I wasn't a waiter. I wasn't that good at a bartender either. But anyway, I tried.
Well, we go out once a month and we imbibe, I have to admit, and we're getting him used to it.
That's great.
I once read in the Ridgefield Press, it had to be at least 15 years ago or more, somebody who had moved out of Ridgefield, longtime Ridgefielder, wrote to the paper how much she missed Ridgefield, how she really was regretting. She moved, I guess, to retire, but she moved too soon. You know, she just missed everything. And she said, continuity of place and time is important. And that just still, every time, hits me. And it's so true. And that's what this town is really all about. And I just want to say, you know, I've written a couple of manuscripts that will become published novels someday. But I'm working on my third one now. And for those of you who may have known Doris Ventries and Larry Hoyt, father, and Larry was a good friend of mine, and the Ventries and Tad, of course. But when Larry passed, Doris came to where I live, which is on Barry Avenue, just to give me a little memento from him. And she sat there in the kitchen and starts telling me, you know, this where I live is a house. It looks like a house, but it's 4 apartments, identical apartments. And she starts telling me the story about spinster sisters who lived here, and the father built it this way because they didn't get along with each other. And that's the crux of the novel I'm working on now, because it's beautiful. And I just want to thank Jack Sanders, who's helped me already so much on some details and things like that I email him and bother him about. So it's 1915 is when it was built. I came here and found that out. But you know, I've been here a long time. I truly always appreciated the historical Ridgefield. But doing what I'm doing now, it's like a reappreciation, because I'm really now digging deeper into the past and all the resources that are available online and here, and it's really kind of moving for me anyway.
I think the biggest change that's come around recently is that we don't have a newspaper in this town.
Yes. Agreed.
Yes.
And the rags that try to pass as news I describe them quite differently.
Yeah. We miss Mac and Jack.
Yes, we do.
A lot.
We do.
A lot.
Well, I worked at the Ridgefield Press, I don't know, 40 years, and Jack was my mentor and boss most of that time, and it's a great experience. And
it was my first job at the age of 15, and I learned many years later, maybe even 25 years later, that the $19.20 that I earned a week was supplied by my father, not Carl Mann.
And did the Nashes own the press all the time you were
most
there?
of that time,
For all the time?
Yeah. Well, most of it.
Yeah.
Well, Thomas was, you were.
Was
you
bought
had
by
a little
Hearst,
Hearst, but
and then the office moved to Danbury, the house on Bailey Avenue closed. I don't know, that was maybe the last 5 years I worked. Or 4
fortunately,
years
I
or
could have
something.
I abandoned ship before Hearst.
Yeah. But the Nashes were a great family to work for. You know, Carl was a wonderful mentor and a wonderful just guy, but he was mean, it's a different age. He was chairman of the school board and
Yeah,
published the
right.
only paper in town
Yes.
for a
Yes.
long time. But you know, he was great. And then his son Tom Nash ran it for many years. And
Well, it's a dramatic change not having it. I mean, I think
It is.
Yes, it is.
it sets the town back considerably.
It does, absolutely.
Yeah, we all agree on that.
Especially at election time. They don't print anything about the elections
Right.
anymore.
Right.
I think it's printed. Nothing we knew growing up. It's not there anymore.
Well, how does everyone get their news now?
Well, unfortunately, many of them get it from Fox or one of those other upstarts, if you can call that news. I don't call it news, but they do.
Well, the
Or you
local
mean
news.
Local news.
Local news.
Local news online,
Yeah,
Yeah.
social
But
media,
social media.
Yeah.
Hamlet Hub, that type of
And
thing.
Hamlet, you
Yeah.
can't believe it. A lot of that, what you see on the internet is absolute horse hockey.
Right, no, but the Ridgefield Press online or Danbury paper,
yeah, they still have a website.
yeah.
I noticed that the Board of Selectmen, or the town government in some way, is now doing a newsletter.
Yeah, I
I
saw it.
recently got an email offering
Right.
me to sign up for
I
their
did,
newsletter.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Which
think
is
it's up.
at least telling you, you know, there's going to be a meeting, this is what we're doing on Grove Street, stuff like that.
Right.
I'll talk to you afterwards and find out how.
Okay.
I hadn't heard of that.
I think it was a part of the Ridgefield alerts
Yeah, I think they got our probably our email addresses from
the
Ridgefield
Ridgefield
Alerts.
alerts.
Do you get that?
No.
Ridgefield
Alerts,
Alerts,
yes.
for
Yes.
everybody. It's they send out either text messages or emails or both to let you know about urgent things. Like last week we got one about someone had left their keys in their car on Umstead Lane and the car was stolen and totaled. Please lock your car. Duh. But they also tell you about road closures and
and, al-
missing children.
and also like the Main Street
Yeah,
renovations and, you know,
yeah,
what's going
progress with that. Yeah.
I have a question. How long has there been a newspaper in Ridgefield? When did they start publishing a newspaper? And has the newspaper had different names in the past?
1875, the only paper.
Wow. It's a long time.
1875.
There was always a Ridgefield Press
Yeah.
Yep.
in my
Well,
lifetime.
yeah.
Yeah, in our lifetime, yeah.
And before that, where did everyone get their news? Was there a certain neighboring town
Danbury
newspaper?
News.
Town cried.
No.
Some of them are like,
Yeah,
the
right.
British are
Yeah.
coming, the British are coming.
Right.
That's true.
Stanford,
It was,
daily
it
papers,
was a lot better too.
weeklies.
I didn't know all this stuff. Yes.
Great. Does anyone else have any other stories they'd like to share? Anything that comes to mind about your family or living here in town, or any interesting neighbors you had?
The only thing I'd like to comment on is these beautiful ladies here and their school they went to. I would love to have been there. Look at the education and how bright these ladies are.
That's right.
It's fantastic. And they had a great time on top of it.
That's right, that's right.
We did,
We did.
Well, it sounds like
and we still are.
Ridgefield is known for its great schools, I've heard.
Yes.
Great. Does anyone else have any other comments or questions they'd like to share?
Just one other
sure.
comment that I'm thinking of. While we're sitting here on Sunset Lane, a lot of the immigrants, our ancestors, the Italians, the Irish, all lived along here in Sunset Lane when they first came over. All these little houses you see were immigrant lived there. And the reason was because they worked on the railroad, which used to come right over here, where Ridgefield Supply is. And most of
It's called Railroad Avenue.
Yeah. My in-laws live right across the street.
Right.
The Zandries,
Mhm.
Frattini's, what else is up that way?
Salvestrini. Salvestrini?
Salvestrini, right.
Right. And then we fill up, we had the Periandris, the Giardinis, and a lot of them were in this area because they worked on the railroad.
Land on the corner of Prospect.
That's right, yes.
When my brother was 16, my identical twin brother was 16, he announced to my parents and me that he was changing his name to Aldo Salvestrini. It was the most beautiful name he'd ever had.
And there's one that lives right up here now.
Yeah, that's a good
Chip
story.
Salvestrini, yeah. That was his
Not to
grandfather.
neglect the Irish, but my mother-in-law and father-in-law lived over on Mountain View Avenue. And my father-in-law was very happy. He had started in Westchester, but came over, worked for the fellow who ran that place that J.P. Morgan, what was the restaurant?
Le Chateau.
Pardon?
Le Chateau.
La Chateau. He came over, was a chauffeur there when he got out of the army, and he married my mother-in-law, and they ended up on Mountain View Avenue right over there. Just to keep a little bit of the Irish influence.
Well,
Just a little.
I can remember growing up in Ridgefield, and I lived out Cooper Hill Road, halfway to Branchville, and feeling as a kid, kind of feeling locked out of. There was the sort of downtown, the Italians, and mostly Italians, but some Irish, Guy Montanari and all these. And they rode their bikes around, and they all hung around together. And I was from out in the boondocks,
Right.
Had to ride a bus.
Come on, you didn't belong, huh?
Yeah.
You didn't live in the center of
Right.
town. You didn't belong here.
Yeah.
No,
I
you're
felt that
right.
way.
I lived up on North Salem Road,
Yeah.
right near the North Salem line. I felt like you, Mac. I envied them. They all
Yeah.
lived in town. They could
Yeah, the
walk
townies.
everywhere. It was a big deal to come into town for us. But
Yeah.
now I'm happy I ended up here.
I used to walk to town on the railroad tracks.
Yes.
Down the rail
Yes.
trail.
Yes, Mac. We, I lived on Prospect Street, so the train went by every day, and we would go down to the tracks, and we'd put pennies on the tracks, and they would be flattened out.
Oh,
Yeah, as the train went by.
I did that once.
Yeah.
And then that night on TV, heard about some train derailment, which was probably in Scarsdale, but thought, oh my God, it was me.
Well, we could probably talk about this at the next time, but when living on Main Street and our little, we had that little neighborhood there, all
Yeah.
along Main Street,
With the
down
Nashes.
Prospect Street, up here.
Mm.
But the Italian club was always a mystery. There was always parties going on, always festivals, and we weren't Italian, so we couldn't go, but we would just watch. But what a great place that was! Oh my God!
Oh, the Italian club?
Yeah.
They would let
that's
strangers
another
go
American
in.
ritual
Yeah,
ladies.
'cause I always remember going to the Italian club.
Yeah,
the
later.
dinners, whichever.
Oh, ladies' night.
Night,
yeah.
ladies' night, absolutely, you had to figure
For
it
field
out.
day every fall. We had a
Yes.
field day every
You
fall.
could go on and on about that.
Yeah, I know you could.
I worked there for 25 years.
That's all right, I'm trying to check out. I just noticed that there was a stained glass window in St. Mary's over on the side for someone named McGlynn. Well, that didn't mean much to anybody else, but it does to me because Josephine McGlynn, my grandmother, came over from Ireland in 1845 in the middle of the potato famine. Now, she ended up in Mystic in New London, and that's another long story. But they're checking now through the records to see what they can find out, to see if this was a McGlynn, and by the way, came from County Roscommon, and that was the first thing that my husband and I had in favor because his father came from County Roscommon. I gotta keep the Irish.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, ladies, I have to go up on a phone call.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
Oh, we have more stories.
Oh, lots.
We got a lot
You
more
could go
stories.
on and on.
Okay. I think we're going to wrap it up here for today, but I want to thank you again for stopping by, and our next meeting is going to be next month at 10 o'clock on Tuesday, June 20th. So I hope you'll please mark your calendar and come back, and we're going to pick a specific topic to talk about for the next meeting. And I think this will be a fun gathering to continue. I really enjoyed hearing all your stories today, and these will be very important to archive here at the Ridgefield Historical Society. So thank you all very much, and have a nice day.
Thank you.